Ooh. Okay, let's go ahead and get started, everybody. Um, we are going to start from chapter 5 overview today. I'm going to share my screen. Can you confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. So who do we have in the line so far? We have Divya, Savitri, Divyansh, and Ram. Very good. Let's go ahead and get started. So we are in chapter 5 today. And so before we get started, let's say the pranam mantra of Srila Prabhupada. नमो ओम विष्णुपदाय कृष्ण प्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासति गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. Chapter 5 is entitled Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. Srila Prabhupada actually tells us that this chapter is further elaborating on that one question which Arjun has repeatedly asked, and he's going to continue asking that same question in this chapter in a slightly different way. And this is where Srila Prabhupada is giving us some information on how we can act in a Krishna conscious way. So let's get right into it. This is chapter number 5. Just to give a little bit of a background, you'll notice that we have had in chapter 2, Krishna talked about Gyan, where he says, we got to work through Buddhi Yoga. And Buddhi Yoga was translated as devotional service. And at the end of chapter 2, Arjun became confused. And he was thinking, we have Jnana on one hand, where you basically renounce everything and you acquire Gyan, right? So you renounce everything that you're doing. And then you have Buddhi Yoga, which is or Nishkama Karma Yoga, which means you have to work something. You don't have to give up anything. You have to continue your engagement. So chapter 3 opened up by, him saying, what should he do? I'm kind of confused about, because you said, on one hand, you said you should give up. The other hand, you're saying you should not give up and do something, right? He said renunciation. So this is jnana. In this case, is called renunciation. And so by renouncing all the material objects, you go ahead and achieve gyan. Or should you do nishkam karma or buddhi yoga, which is you work in devotion? This question was asked in chapter 3. And then in chapter 3, he heard about the karma, which is jnana, through jnana. Krishna was giving him to that. Where he heard about action and inaction and action and inaction and action, right? So this was covered yesterday. And then finally, Krishna concluded by saying, transcendental knowledge, and he glorified that. And therefore, he says, therefore, you should stand up and fight. The question in chapter 5 is similar to chapter 3, where Arjun is still confused. He's not able to grasp. He's saying, tell me one for sure. Which one should I do? Which is better? Should I work with devotion or should I give up my work? Okay. This is again, if you look at these sannyasis, they, for some of these yogis, they are basically out there, trying to achieve through yoga, through jnana yoga, through meditation, just giving up everything. On the other hand, there are people who are actually doing the work in this material world. So the understanding of that is that Krishna is going to say that we need to be in this world, but not of this world. What that means is that we should not give up what we are doing. We should continue doing what we are doing in the mood of devotion. So we'll read more about that. So here, Arjun kind of almost feels like in text number 1, he's back to square one. He's asking because Gyan in chapter 4 was, glorified, the transcendental knowledge was glorified. He's asking, if Gyan is so glorious, then why should I do what you're asking me to do? To stand up and fight. And then Arjun is also saying, first of all, you asked me to renounce work, and then you recommend me to work with devotion. Because he's getting confused. Renounce the work or work with confusion. Therefore, please, Krishna, tell me definitively which one is more beneficial. He's asking, just give me ek hai, just give me one instruction. Don't confuse me. This is what Arjun's mind is. Again, Arjun is asking these questions on our behalf. So this is where when we are receiving these questions, these answers, pardon me, from Krishna, we don't know for sure because we want to have Krishna clarify this. Had it not been for Srila Prabhupada, we would have been still confused. Prabhupada did this wonderful thing. He gave the definition of devotional service, which was basically the culmination of all the instructions in Bhagavad Gita. The conclusion of Bhagavad Gita, he gave us that in every single chapter, devotional service. And so Arjun here is asking for our benefit. Which one should I do? I am a student. I am a father. I am a mother. I have some volunteer services that I do. Should I give up all that? Or should I do it with whatever I'm doing with devotion? Did everybody get the question that Arjun is asking?
Yes, bro.
Yes, it's an important question. Now, because this is actually applicable even in our lives, where we see that there is an element of renunciation. Sometimes it comes up. We can see that sometimes we say, you know what, this math is way too hard for me, man, or this organic chemistry is extremely difficult. I don't know whoever made this. Why are they punishing young students like me? Or it could be that it could be AP history of US history. Who will go back and study all that history right now? What the difference does it make? Just let me do my exams. Okay, let me move forward. It depends on which choice, which branch of career that we want to focus in. Somebody wants to go into medicine. If somebody wants to go into, one of my friend's daughter is going into astrophysics. That's a really, far out major she's pursuing. But anyways, the point is that we all have these moments when we think, oh, I don't want to do this. Okay. AP Gov, you may have another AP Gov, for example, coming up. AP government and what is it called, Advaita? AP Gov and AP Gov is US government stuff. Like, it's a lot of political stuff. My mind is not wired for that. I just can't grasp it. So I'm like, oh, I just want to give this up. I'm not gonna do this today. I don't want to do this tomorrow. I'll probably do it over the weekend. So we have these moments of renunciation. But ultimately, is this gonna be more helpful? Or rather, I take some time out deliberately, seek some help, and actually ask somebody to give me some input into how I can best prepare for that AP Gov or AP Lit or whatever that happens to be. Okay. I'm trying to adjust the light on this one, but it's either too dark or okay. Is this better? Maybe this is better. Okay, this is better. So that's the moment of renunciation. Sometimes when we have difficulty with our friends in relationship, if I have a friendship relationship with someone and somebody did not okay, I'm gonna go back to this. This is getting dark now. Okay. And if somebody mistreated me, or something happened. So I just need to know what's the right way to approach it. Am I just gonna completely, you know, abandon the relationship that I've had for some time, or am I gonna be able to, um, somehow go back and see if I can, make amends. So those are just some moments of renunciation. We just need to be careful that when we are talking about renunciation, are we completely going to give something up, or is it going to be something that can be worked on with devotion? Okay, give me a second. I'm going to open up the window so the lights are better. Okay, this is much better. So everybody got the question, right? Let's go on. This chart, and again, I will share this link with all of you, so you'll get to see. So this chart here shows you the difference between renunciation and working in devotion. Okay, then this is something to understand: the Mayavadi sannyasis versus the Vaishnava sannyasis. Again, from text chapter 3, the renunciation, they need prior purification by prescribed duties. So you need to be purified before you can do something. Working in devotion, the process itself purifies us. Again, 5-2, 5-2. See, risk of fall down, renunciation. Whereas when you work in devotion, success is guaranteed. What a beautiful way. If I'm having difficulty with any of my subjects in academics, all I need to do is reach out to somebody who's senior than me, who can understand this, who can explain. I can reach out to a tutor, and then, I get success. So renunciation here, this is incomplete. Working in devotion is complete renunciation. We've heard this term. We've heard this phrase, water the root. If you're not speaking, kindly mute yourself. Thank you. We've heard this term, watering the root, right? That's what happens when you work in devotion. Whereas in renunciation, you're finding the root, right? The process in renunciation is to detach from matter. Whereas in working in devotion is not to detach, but become attached to Krishna. It brings happiness. Our senses are engaged in devotional services, right? And again, they take people who are renouncing, go that path, they take many, many births. But for those who work in devotion, we quickly achieve the personality of Godhead. Again, there's some philosophy here. There's some Sankhya philosophy. Sankhya philosophy, the renunciation, people, they do study. And Krishna actually also gave us. Sankhya basically means to divide things up in as small as smaller chunks as possible so that we can digest them, we can study them, we can accept them, right? For example, if I have to study a whole book, I can't, and if the whole book was to be like one long paragraph, it's going to be really difficult for me to understand what's going on. Therefore, in the book, they have multiple sections. Within the sections, they have chapters. Within the chapters, they have units. And at the end of each unit, there is a small assessment just to make sure that I can grasp knowledge. So we can say, breaking things down to its fundamental unit is basically the Sankhya philosophy. All right, that's the Sankhya. And from what Krishna is teaching us, Sankhya philosophy is the difference between body and the soul, the difference between spirit and matter. Okay, moving on. So these next verses 2-5 say, Krishna basically says that, in many ways, they both are kind of the similar. In other words, no matter which path you go, either you renounce it or you work in devotion, you're not going to hate neither hates or desires the fruits. You're going to be free from duality. You'll see the liberation will actually come, and this comes to an understanding that he's the soul, not the body. Right? Same thing here on the other, working with devotion. You will not hate or desire any fruits. You'll be free from dualities. Liberation will come, right? And will come becoming attached to working for Krishna. So that will continue. But Krishna responds, they both are good, but work with devotion is easier and therefore it is better. This is a key point. This is the key point that Krishna is actually calling it out. Here if you see, this is one person who's trying to pursue the work path of renunciation, and he's trying to meditate. He's thinking, how long can you keep your mind, on one thought for this long? And if you look at the other guy, he all he's thinking about is dinner. This dinner. That's with one thought. Anyways, here's Arjun's confusion. Arjun is saying that, oh Krishna, you're saying that work for sense activity must be given up. Fighting for a kingdom, even with knowledge of the soul, it seems like an activity of senses for me. And that's a pretty valid argument. Krishna actually says in chapter 2, right? He said, just, you'll get the kingdom. He said, even I have the knowledge that I'm the soul, and if I fight, and I'm going to fight for it and get it, it seems like, oh, I'm just getting the kingdom to enjoy my senses. If one works with devotion, then how is work stopped? So I'm working for Krishna, but work is still going on, right? And then he talked about action in inaction and inaction in action, right? So, so all of this is really confusing, Arjun. And he's basically saying, I really can't, understand. Then we get into this Nishkam Karma, where that one who is performing Nishkam Karma Yoga identifies neither with his body nor with his activities that his body performs. He is detached from his actions. And by that, he will become free from the reactions of his activities. So, any work that I'm doing in Nishkam Karma Yoga, I will not be incurring the results of those actions. That is the key. So, when we talk about Nishkam Karma Yoga, there the Srila Prabhupada says, the steadily devoted soul attains unadulterated peace because he offers the results of those activities to me. So this is actually a differentiator. He offers the results of those activities to me. Whereas a person who's not in union with me, who's greedy for the fruits of his labor, he gets entangled. So this is an important concept to understand, dear devotees. If I am doing something for myself, and if I'm going and doing, I'm desiring, I'm actually putting things in motion, I'm actually working, I'm acting, then the ultimate, the fruits of those actions is me. I'm enjoying that fruit of the action. That will entangle me. Therefore, it is said that good actions will lead to good results and bad actions will lead to bad results. So good karma will give you a good benefit. Bad karma will give you bad benefit. So the question is that ultimately, no matter which action you do, whether you do good or you do bad, you will ultimately get a result. And that result will bind you to this material world. How can I get out of this material world? And the secret to that is you do the work, but you offer it to Krishna. And by doing that, we do not become entangled in this material world. Krishna then goes through and talks about enlightenment through the three doers, the soul, the material nature, and the super soul. So this is another thing that they may ask about the difference between these. So when we talk about the soul, that's me, my individual identity. That's the jiva. Material nature is prakriti. So prakriti is something that is considered that as matter that requires spirits to be activated. So that is prakriti. Now, we say, who's actually doing the work? If I am reaching out and if I'm typing something on my laptop, I'm saying, oh, I just did the work. That's the soul. But if you look at, it's sunny outside, it was thunderstorming, raining yesterday, or by circumstance, something happened to me. How is all that happening? I think we talk about, destiny at some point. Why am I in this situation, right? Because it's nature. If I go out trekking and the weather app shows that, hey, it's nice and sunny, but when I go out that it starts raining, it's nature, nothing that I can control. And ultimately, it is the super soul, Lord Vishnu, Krishna. He is the sanctioner of everything. So the question then becomes, who's actually doing? Am I doing it? Is it nature doing it? Or is, the super soul doing it? And when we understand a little bit more about this, we get to know more details. So first of all, if we talk about the jiva, myself, I am situated in this body of 9 gates. There are 9 holes in the body. And we understand that we are not working or causing the work to be done. We don't create any activities. We don't induce people to act. And therefore, we don't, create the fruits of action. When we have this kind of an understanding, we can live happily because we are renouncing the fruits. We are renouncing the results of our actions. Material nature, on the other hand, they are doing everything, but they are under the direction of the Lord. And super soul, who is the doer number 3, he is sanctioning everything, but he's aloof. He doesn't take responsibility. So if I'm going to do something bad, I'm going to say, oh, you know what? Not me. The super soul in me asked me to do it. No, no, no. It doesn't work that way. The super soul is out there sanctioning your desire. He does not take responsibility for anyone's good or bad actions. The soul desires, the Lord doesn't interfere with that desire because every soul, we have a free will. We can desire what we want. Lord will simply sanction those desires as the living entity deserves. And then that in the nature, there are these three modes of material nature. They will actually carry out the action. This is the knowledge in the mode of goodness. If we look at the difference between the soul and the super soul, and this question might come in the contest for those who are preparing, there's a difference. When you compare the soul and the super soul, both are eternal, by the way. It's not that the soul dies and the super soul never dies. The soul and the super soul are both eternal, they will not die. Soul is blissful, but it suffers when covered by Maya. We are covered by Maya, and therefore we identify ourselves with the body. Super soul, on the other hand, is blissful, and he is above the mode. Therefore, he is not covered by Maya. The soul is cognizant of his body, so I know my body. I know if there's an ache and pain, then I know if there's what I need to do about it. But if somebody else has a headache, I don't know unless the symptoms show up on his face. But super soul is cognizant of all the bodies. The soul is atomic. It's tiny, whereas the super soul is omniscient. And then the soul has minute independence to desire, but it is dependent upon the super soul to fulfill those desires. So we can desire something, but we are depending on the super soul. Whereas the super soul does not depend on anybody. The super soul does not depend on anybody to complete. In our Shastras, there's this thing that has been given that there are two birds sitting on the tree. One bird is eating the fruit, the other bird is watching. The two souls within this body, one bird who is eating the fruit is us, the other one who's watching is Krishna. So understanding this kind of knowledge will lead to enlightenment. It can lead to the transcendence if it is focused on the super soul. And then comes text number 18, the equality of vision. So we need to see everybody as equal. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne, Brahmane Gavi Hastini. How does that happen? That one who has come to that stage of enlightenment can see the super soul in every single living entity. These humble sages, by virtue of true vision, they see with equal vision a learned, a gentle Brahman cow, an elephant dog, and a dog eater. No matter who they are, we can see they're all equal because they see the presence of the super soul in all these bodies. They're all situated in Brahman. When one gets his attention, his consciousness fixed on the super soul, you're situated in Brahman. Your intelligence, your mind, your faith, your refuge, everything is focused. You're free from the doubts, and you have the knowledge of the three doers. And he sees that the super soul in every single living body is sanctioning, but he's impartial. So one who sees this with equal vision is the reason is because he has the knowledge that he is not the body, and he has the knowledge of the super soul. That's when one attains to the platform of Brahman. Where when you say Brahman, Brahman is not something that you get out of this material world and then you try to achieve Brahman. Okay, Brahman is a state of being where you are in this material world, but you have transcended the three material modes, and your mind is fixed on Krishna. Your mind is fixed on the super soul, and in that way they are acting. Okay, there was a hand raised, I think, by someone. Radhika and Rasika, do you have your hand raised, or was it just an accident? Okay, we'll continue. Okay, so that's when one attains Brahman, and then the question then is, okay, well then how long do I have to tolerate pushing of these senses? Well, Krishna says it's going to be until the death of the body. How long do I have to tolerate? You have to tolerate until this body is fully unusable, right? So then at that point of time, Krishna says you'll be assured of liberation in the very near future. You'll become happy even when in this material world. You'll find happiness within, and higher taste will be attained. You'll make it easy to tolerate. You'll become a perfect mystic. You'll know the super soul. You'll be liberated. You won't be affected by the three modes of material nature, right? And it's beyond doubt and duality. So we'll become free from sin and will ultimately attain liberation in the Supreme. And then this text, 27 and 28, is basically the preparation of liberation through Ashtanga Yoga. And here in the Ashtanga Yoga, this is the essence of the of the Ashtanga Yoga. That is basically presented here. The main theme is that the karma, in addition to Karma Yoga, one can achieve super soul through the realization of Ashtanga Yoga. And then finally, the last verse of chapter 5 is the peace formula that Srila Prabhupada says that we can achieve true peace when we understand Krishna's supremacy. We have to understand that Krishna is the supreme. And when we act accordingly, that's when we can achieve real peace. So that is the overall chapter 5. Did anybody have any question or comments on chapter 5? Radhika, do you have your hand raised? Did you have a question?
Yes. My
What is your
question
question?
is, you said that chanting Hare Krishna, you can get over the modes of the three modes.
Yes.
But how to get the mood to chant correctly?
How to get the mood to chant correctly?
Yes.
Yes. So the mood to chant correctly is basically to say, okay, today I'm going to sit down and I'm going to chant Hare Krishna. Tomorrow I'm going to chant Hare Krishna. Why? Because it is my daily activity. Just like I have to eat food every day to keep my body nourished, I have to chant Hare Krishna to keep my mind nourished, to keep my soul nourished. That is the one thing to understand. Second thing to understand is that when we chant Hare Krishna, we should understand that we are associating with Krishna very, very intimately. So Krishna is right at the tip of our tongue when we chant Hare Krishna. You want to get to be with Krishna, you say Hare Krishna, and Krishna is right there dancing at the tip of your tongue. You want to really come close to Krishna, just say Hare Krishna and you'll be very close to him. And in that mood, when we chant Hare Krishna, then we get so much of motivation that we want to chant even more. Make sense, Radhika?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Good question. Okay, let's move on. We are now going to chapter number 6. And I am going to go ahead and share my screen again for chapter 6. Okay, you should all be able to see my screen now. Chapter 6 is Dhyana Yoga for meditation. So now, if you look at the connection between how the chapter 5 flows through chapter 6, we see that knowledge increases. Radhika, did you have a question again?
Yes. Is my super soul and her super soul the same?
Yes. Absolutely correct. Your super soul and your friend's super soul, your sibling super soul, your parent super soul, my super soul, everyone's super soul is the same.
We are different. How?
We are different because of we are souls. We are not super soul. We are the soul. So if you consider yourself as a soul and somebody else is a soul, now you're different because every soul is different. Super soul is the same, right? Super soul is the same, but soul is different. Make sense?
Yes.
Good. Good question. I'm glad you're asking these questions. That means you're thinking about all this. Okay. And I think there was something on the chat. It was in my window, but let's see, there was something in the chat. How would Ashtanga Yoga lead to God realization? Good question, Divya. That's what chapter 6 is going to talk about. So hold off your question and we will look at it in this chapter. Okay, let's continue on. So we have, if you look at chapter 5, talks about working in Krishna consciousness and understanding the soul, who's basically Krishna. Okay, understanding the super soul. Sorry. In this chart, you will see that there is the ladder of spiritual development. So at the bottom is karma kanda. This is where somebody who is a fruitive worker, they are performing the rituals just so that they can get, some nice benefit. So I'm going to go offer, $10 to Krishna because I want to get really good grades in my exam. That's kind of the mentality would be at that level. Again, step 1 is when you're renouncing the fruits of one's labor, saying, okay, you know what, if I get some good coming out of it, I'm just not going to take it. I'm just going to renounce it. I'm going to give it to somebody else. Step 2 is renouncing it, and at the same time, this is Jnana Yoga. So renouncing the fruits, and I have some speculative knowledge about Brahman, and I'm doing some austerity. Okay, so that's the difference. So we're not only in step 1, am I renouncing the fruits of my labor, in other words, the results of my actions. If I do some work, I'm just going to say, okay, I'm not going to be attached to that. In step 2, with Jnana Yoga, so you see how Jnana Yoga is a step above Karma Yoga. And here it talks about austerity and speculative knowledge. The one above that Jnana Yoga is Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga Yoga is the 8-fold path of meditation given by Patanjali, and it is requiring meditation on the super soul in the heart. And the highest level of yoga is Bhakti Yoga, where we all we do is we chant the name of Hare Krishna. Whatever charity we do, if you want to go, donate $10 to the temple, okay, it's for the service of Krishna. Not that I want Krishna to do something for me, but it is for the service of Krishna. I love you, Krishna. That's why this is done. I love you, Krishna. That's why I'm actually chanting Hare Krishna. Okay, so that's Bhakti Yoga. Again, Arjun is asking this similar question: do I do work or do I do Ashtanga Yoga? Now, if you look at, in this chapter, Ashtanga Yoga is going to be presented. Just to give you a refresher, Bhakti Yoga means we become attached to Krishna and we work for him. And therefore we control our mind and senses. Ashtanga Yoga is to give up the attachment to the fruits of my work, control the senses and focus the mind within. That might be a little difficult to understand, but let's look at the steps of Ashtanga Yoga. So if you look at these steps of Ashtanga Yoga that is involved, the first step is Yama, where we have to have some negative prohibitions. So basically, don't do this kind of a thing. Like, for example, we talk about, not to involve in illegal activities, not to involve in falsehood. Okay, so we should not speak lies. We should not hurt anybody. All right, that's the Yama. Then is Niyama. Niyama means what we should do. What we should do is we should speak the truth. We should be compassionate. We should help other people. And then comes Asana. Asana is where you have to sit in a proper posture. This is, you must have seen, there are some of these yogis, they actually sit down like this and they go Om and stuff like that, right? And that's where they are going and basically getting into Ashtanga Yoga. So it's getting a little technical, but I think Advaita, it might be helpful for you. Asana is where you have the sitting postures, right? That's where a lot of Hatha Yoga right now are at the Asana level. Then we have Pranayama. Pranayama involves the breathing, the controlling of the breath and regulating of the breath. Pratyahar is where the senses are withdrawn inward after this breathing. When you actually get into with the control of your breath, then all the senses are actually withdrawn and it goes inside. And at that point of time, dharana starts, where the mind is completely absorbed in the thought of Krishna. And when that is happening, then we can meditate on Vishnu or Krishna, and that is dhyan. And finally, continuously doing that, that leads us to a point of samadhi. So this is the gradual process, 8-step process given by the sage Patanjali. Now comes an interesting point. If we have to focus our mind, we find that our mind is restless. It's hard for us to focus on any one particular thing for a long period of time. So my mind says, do this, do this. Other side of the mind says, no, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. On one side, my mind will say, hey, you need to chant Hare Krishna. Other side, my mind will say, oh, you know what? Let me just, sleep today, or let me go out and watch something today and play something today. I'll chant Hare Krishna tomorrow. Okay? When we have this kind of a struggle going on within our mind, then the question is mind really our enemy or is mind really our friend? So let's look at here the question is, if you look at somebody who is at the lowest level of that Patanjali, of that Ashtanga Yoga, that person's work, if you see, that person actually must work, but they are, he's not detached or pure advanced, therefore he must work. Here's a neophyte stage, and the Sanskrit word here is Yoga Rurukshu. So, Advaita, this might be helpful for you. Yoga Rurukshu, whereas the advanced stage is Yoga Ruda. Okay? Yoga Rurukshu and Yoga Ruda. So for the Yoga Ruda, they do not act for sense gratification. They don't engage in their productive activities. They practice yoga all the time. Nishkam Karma Yoga can be given up at this point because they are practicing yoga. They have full knowledge of who they are. I'll share the link of this so you'll get a chance to go through this chart in a little bit more detail. Again, coming back to the topic of mind, we see that there are 6 different enemies of the mind. When you say enemy of the mind, it's not somebody who's actually coming and attacking your mind, but we have these thoughts in our mind which are maddening. Sometimes they just like overcome us. We get into illusion. Or if we are jealous of somebody, or if you're greedy, if you're greedy to eat something, or or so if you're greedy to like get something that you don't have right now, or if somebody gets angry, right? Or if somebody is really desiring something intensely, all these things actually take away the peace of the mind. They take away the balance of the mind. So one who is established in self-realization, they can actually see that no matter whether it is a piece of rock or whether it is a $20 bill, both of them are the same. And the example given here is that whether it's a small stone or it's a huge rock, or if it's a bar of gold, or if it's gold, they are all the same. Why? Because they are all material objects. That's the vision that one will be able to accomplish, to have. And with furthermore advancement, we can see honest well-wishers, affectionate benefactors. These are all, people who are equal. And we also have people who are, sometimes enemies. And there are pious and sinners. All of them can be seen equally, with equal vision. So the next few verses, it talks about the stages of this Ashtanga Yoga. These yogis actually follow through this. Krishna gives an analogy where he says that just as a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled, he always remains steady in his meditation on the transcendental self. So this is what Krishna says, that when you are fixed within your mind, you're fixed within on your super soul, your mind will actually always remain fixed. For example, when we are chanting Hare Krishna, right? We chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra every day. When we are chanting, what are we chanting? How are we chanting? We are focusing on the words that are coming out of our mouth. And we are hearing those words. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We are focusing on the words, right? So if sometimes our mind wavers and we can't focus on the chanting of the Hare Krishna, then we we focus on Radha Golokananda. And we mentally project an image of Radha Golokananda. And we chant in front of them. And we can mentally project the image of the lotus feet of Radha Golokananda. And we chant. So in that way, when we chant, then our mind will always remain fixed on Krishna. It will not waver. Otherwise, when the mind wavers, people do all kinds of things. They're, not focusing on Krishna and focusing on so many different things. Krishna then talks about a yogi, and this is an important chart here. So yogi, the nature of the yogi is to follow the Yoga Shastra, to practice celibacy, and they are usually secluded from the general mass of people. They are concerned with their own spiritual advancement at this point. They're not much interested in eating as much or dressing as much because they feel that they just want to be detached from all the material world. The philosophy is that the soul is eternal, the body is material, which is fine. Super soul is within everything and everything is within him. That is true. He sees equally all beings. His goal is to become one with the super soul. This is the differentiating factor. In devotion, we do not want to become one with Krishna. We want to always remain separate from Krishna and we want to serve him. Now, from a mentality and attitude perspective, he is very determined. His mind is focused on the super soul. He may desire some mystic powers and he may make a mistake of himself as a super soul. When you look at an action of what the action the yogi performs, a neophyte one will perform karma yoga with Ashtanga yoga, which is really interesting. Again, and the result that this person would get is mystic perfection. When you get siddha, when you get siddhi, these are people who are yogis who have performed Ashtanga yoga, they will be given with some kind of a siddhi. If they do not achieve their perfection, then they will take birth in an aristocratic or a devotee family with transcendentalists. At this point of time, Arjun says, he raises his hand. I have a question. Okay, my dear Arjun, what is your question? He says, you are saying to control the mind in meditation, chanting with Krishna in mind. But it's not possible for me to chant or not possible for me to control my mind. Because my mind is more powerful, it is more difficult to control than the wind. Is it possible to control the wind, dear devotees? Has anybody controlled the wind? Yeah. So it's very difficult to control the mind because it's more difficult. So Krishna then says, okay, I hear what you're saying, but it's possible. How is it possible? By practice and by detachment. You practice something over and over again, and then you detach yourself from that. It is possible. That is what Krishna says. And then he says, for one whose mind is unbridled, meaning it does not waver. Self-realization is difficult work. I'm sorry. For one whose mind is unbridled, that means one who cannot be steady. The self-realization is difficult work. But he whose mind is controlled and who strives by appropriate means is assured of success. Is assured of success. Just like when we call out to the name of Lord Gauranga, when we say Gauranga, Gauranga immediately listens. He reciprocates with us. He loves us. That's Gauranga. Okay. Krishna continues. And then, the question is that what happens to one who's not achieving that level of perfection? And then he says that, what? You may begin the process of self-realization, and later somebody who's not able to continue, they do not attain perfection in mysticism. That unsuccessful yogi will take birth into a good family, into an aristocratic, meaning a high position family or a rich family. That's what they will take birth in. And they will revive their divine consciousness. They'll be attracted to yogic principles. And Krishna will then conclude this chapter 6 by saying, the topmost yogi, yogi namapi sarvesham. And before that, he says in text number 46, he says, of all those yogis, one who with great faith always abides in me, thinking of me, Krishna. You think of me. You perform all your Ashtanga yoga and everything else, but you think of me always. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That's my opinion. That is what Krishna is saying. And finally, here's a chart that actually shows you how the yoga actually just, the low yoga ladder, karma yoga, then you have sakam and nishkam, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, bhakti yoga, right? So you can study this chart. An ultimate thing to understand is that bhakti is the peak of all yoga. So whether you're doing nishkam karma yoga, whether you're doing jnana yoga, whether you're doing ashtanga yoga, bhakti is the topmost. And when one is doing bhakti, it's not that you're not doing any of the other yogas. All the other yogas are actually included. All the yogas are included. They are all, karma and jnana are like limbs of bhakti yoga. So bhakti yoga is the ultimate thing that we would do. And there in bhakti yoga, we chant the name of Krishna and we serve Krishna in devotional service. And that is the conclusion that Krishna is presenting in chapter number 6. He has given us so many different things. He's given us the definition of Ashtanga yoga. He talked about people who go out of the material world. But ultimately, he says, of all those people, that person who ultimately abides in me, one who thinks of me, that person is the highest yogi of all. Okay, I see some hand raised. Radhika, you have your hand raised.
You said the devotee doesn't find any difference between the rock and the $20 bill. But
Yes.
with the rock, you can't buy anything. With the $20 bill, you can get some candy or stuff, a bag of candy.
Yes,
So
that is
how is it
correct.
different? How is it different?
How is it different? Yes, good question. Now, think about this. If I am the owner of a large candy store,
Mhm.
and if somebody gives me the $20 saying go buy candy, is the $20 going to be any worth to me? Because I already own a large candy store. So for me, if you give me a $20 bill or if you give me a piece of stone, it's the same, right? Or I can say, if I know somebody who's the owner of a candy store, then I could just go to the candy store and I can get whatever I want. I don't necessarily need that $20. Okay, you were going to say something. Continue.
But even if you own a candy store, you can use that 20 bills for something else.
Okay, very good. Now, not only am I the owner of a candy store, I am the owner of a whole mall. I'm the owner of the city. I'm the owner of the country. I'm the owner of the universe. I'm the owner of all the universes existing out there. Everything belongs to me. I'm the source of everything. Everything comes from me. That one person, if I know that person and if I'm connected with that person, now do I need a $20 bill? Or do I need a rock? I don't need that.
No.
No matter what because I know the ultimate supreme person. It's like saying, I know if I know, the president of the country, Joe Biden, right? And I know that he can, pull a few favors for me. Like if I want to buy a house, and if Biden calls up and says, hey, go, get this person a house. Or if I say, hey, I need to, go to this such and such school because that is favorite. That's where my friends are going. Biden calls up and says, okay, make this happen. So they'll go to that school, right? So you know Biden. When you know Biden, he knows what you need and he will help you because you love him. Krishna is our supreme person. He is the ultimate. He is the, you know, the highest that you can get. So when you know Krishna and you tell Krishna, oh Krishna, I'm yours, I'm here to serve you, Krishna will give you what you want. Not only a bag of candies, not only a bag of clothes, not only, you know, whatever you need, a bunch of toys, he'll give you whatever you want. You say, I'm going to chant Hare Krishna, and he say, okay, fine, I'll give you whatever you want. He is so happy because you're chanting Hare Krishna. Now, if you have that happiness from Krishna, now whether you get a rock or a $20 bill, does it make a difference to you?
No.
No. Therefore, both of them are the same. If somebody gives you a $20 bill, $20 bill, I have Krishna. He is the richest of the richest of the richest person. He
You
can
need-
give me $20 billion. Who needs a $20 bill? He can give me $20 million if I ask Krishna, Krishna, I am in trouble. Please give me $20 million. Krishna says, okay, fine, take it. Now, who cares for a $20 bill, right?
Yeah.
Because I know Krishna. And it is important to know Krishna and to connect with him. Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Navneet, I think you have a hand raised.
Yes, Prabhu. So I have a question about Bhakti Yoga. So is Bhakti Yoga like if I'm chanting Hare Krishna, like is that Bhakti Yoga?
Yes, yes. When you chant Hare Krishna, that is Bhakti Yoga. Yes, absolutely. When you go to the temple, that is Bhakti Yoga. When you're studying Bhagavad Gita, that is Bhakti Yoga. You're in this class right now, you're hearing Bhagavad Gita, that is Bhakti Yoga. When you're eating prasadam, which has been offered to Krishna, the bhoga that has been offered to Krishna, when you're eating, that is Bhakti Yoga. When you're participating in Kirtan and you're hearing the Kirtan, that is Bhakti Yoga. When you go to the temple and you take darshan of Radha Golokananda, that is Bhakti Yoga. When you offer your obeisances to Radha Golokananda, that is Bhakti Yoga. When you take the flower which is offered to the Krishna and you smell the flower, that is Bhakti Yoga. You know how we have the ghee lamp that is offered to Krishna and then we all take like this, empty like that? That is Bhakti Yoga. When the, what should I say? When we get some Mahaprasad, right? We get some Mahaprasad, some water or something, Charnamrit, right? We take Charnamrit when we go to the temple. That is Bhakti Yoga. When you go to another devotee and say, Hare Krishna, Prabhu, how are you? That is Bhakti Yoga. You go to your friend and say, Gauranga, that is Bhakti Yoga. When your friend comes back to you and tells you, Navneet, Gauranga, that is Bhakti Yoga. And then you come on, say, hey, come on, my friend, let's go have some prasadam today. And you both, go hand in hand. Oh, what's for prasadam? It's pizza. And we are eating pizza together. You make a plate for him. He'll make a plate for you. That is Bhakti Yoga. And sometimes what happens is, if you guys have a secret, saying, hey, we're going to play soccer today. I'll be in the front. You be the goalkeeper. Okay? All right. That's our strategy. And we are playing this in the temple grounds, making sure we are all safe. And while playing, we say, okay, Krishna, I'm going to play now. Please allow me to play. That is Bhakti Yoga. When you're studying for your math exam, pray to Krishna. Krishna, I'm studying for my math exam. Please give me the strength to study so I can do well. That is Bhakti Yoga.
Yes, Prabhu.
So you see, Bhakti Yoga is not one thing. No matter what you do, as long as Krishna is in the center, it is Bhakti Yoga. You do whatever, you keep Krishna in mind, that is Bhakti Yoga. Easy?
Yes, Prabhu.
Give me an
Thank you.
example of what you're going to do that is going to be Bhakti Yoga.
I'm going to chant a round of Hare Krishna.
Haribol! What else? What else is Bhakti Yoga? Give me
I'm
something that you can do with your friends or you can do with your family. That is Bhakti Yoga. Give me an example. What can you think of?
maybe I'm gonna do book distribution with my friend.
Fantastic. Do book distribution with your friends. Go out and give a book, Bhagavad Gita, Chant and Be Happy, Beyond Birth and Death, whatever, and say, hey, this is a book about Krishna. Please read. That is Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is the highest kind of yoga that one can do. And it is extremely simple to do it. It is extremely simple. Everybody can do Bhakti Yoga. You can ask anybody to do, you can do. Everybody on this call, we are all doing Bhakti Yoga. Yeah?
Thank you.
Very nice question. Very nice question. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. Are there any other hands raised? Divya Deep, you have your hand raised.
On like the yoga ladder that you showed, do I have to do like karma yoga first to do bhakti yoga next?
Good
can I-
question. Good question. Which grade are you in, Divya?
7th.
7th grade. Fantastic. Very good question for your age. I think you're thinking through, and I'm very inspired to hear your question. So the answer is no. You do not have to do karma yoga first before you can go to jnana yoga. You don't have to do jnana yoga before you can go to the ashtanga yoga. You don't have to do ashtanga yoga before you can go to bhakti yoga. Those ladders, those steps are basically indicating the state in which one might be. Most people will be thinking, they are saying, oh, you know what? Yeah, I know God exists. And, if I, am in trouble, then I can go and ask, I'll go to the temple and say, oh, Lord Krishna, I'm in trouble. I got I got a parking ticket or I got a speeding ticket. I got a cop pulled me over. What do I do? Help me out. I'm gonna donate, I'm gonna sponsor the feast for today, Krishna. Help me out. That when people are in that state of mind, that is a karma, what do you call sakam karma yoga. Right? They are very much in the karma kind of like step 1, step 2 kind of thing. When people actually say that, oh, you know what? Yeah, Krishna, I come here, I look at you, I do kirtan, this and that, everything is great, no problem, but I'm going to go back home and I'm going to sit down and meditate, and that's all I'm going to do. No chanting, no nothing. That's the state of jnana yoga. Some people want to do that, right? They find that that's the thing. So, and then some people will understand by the grace of Srila Prabhupada, oh, Bhakti Yoga is the highest thing to do, and you don't have to progress through these ladders in order to get to Bhakti Yoga. You can go straight to Bhakti Yoga, and we can engage in Bhakti. If I have to climb up a 100-story building, do I get up to the stairs? First floor, second floor, third floor, fourth floor, fifth floor. I will probably not have the energy to even get up to the 5th floor. Some of you young people, maybe you'll get up to the 10th floor, 20th floor, 30th floor. But by the time you reach the 100th floor, some of you may be able to do all the 100 floors. But by that time, people will be exhausted. It will take a long time, right? You may want to stop for water. All that process is all like the other kinds of yoga. Bhakti yoga, when you, so if I have to climb up that 100-story building, instead of climbing up the stairs, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be a little smart. I'm just going to get into the elevator. Ding dong. I get into the elevator, press the button for the 100th floor, and zoop, in like less than a minute, I'm on the 100th floor. That's Bhakti yoga. That's the power of Bhakti yoga. I can immediately go all the way, escalate myself to the 100th floor. I don't have to go through any of the other steps. Bhakti yoga immediately gets me there. And what can I do for Bhakti yoga? I can chant, I can go to the temple, I can participate in kirtan, I can read books, I can talk to people about Krishna, I can hear about Krishna's pastimes from the Krishna book, from the Srimad Bhagavatam. When Krishna was your age, he used to get into all sorts of mischief. We hear that, we relish that. Krishna is, by the way, a very mischievous child. Mother Yashoda is like, oh my God, Krishna, what have you done now? What do I do? When we hear that, I'm like, oh my God, our God is such wonderful. He's not like sitting in a chair, long white beard with like in white robes saying, okay, I'm God, you can do whatever you want. That's not God. Our God is extremely engaging. He's extremely engaging. He is doing in so many different pastimes that he is having a great time and his devotees are having a great time. So when we listen to those pastimes, when we cherish those pastimes, when we cherish those wonderful leelas of Krishna, we are totally nourished. We are totally nourished. Whether it is a Kaliya Daman or whether he goes and kills Kamsa, he's just got so many different pastimes. And he's extremely lovable. He's extremely lovable. We all love him so much. I'm going to ask you a question, Divya. What if in your room right now, Krishna were to appear at 12 years of age? He's a 12-year-old boy and he's appearing right in front of you. What would you do?
Seek his blessings and
What?
seek his blessings and
Seek his blessings. Okay. Yeah. You know what? What would I do? I would run up to him and I would just try to embrace him. I'm like, hey, Krishna, you made it here. And I'm like, I'm such a lowly fallen person. I would have never made it. But you are so merciful that you actually made it into my room. I'm so extremely merciful, Krishna. I don't have any words. I'm like, I can't even say I'm grateful, but you're like beyond all of that. You're extremely merciful on somebody like me. Make sense? Do Bhakti Yoga. Good question, Divya. Any other hand raised? Navneet, you're back with your question. You're on mute, Navneet.
So, I have a question. So, are any people still doing karma yoga like today?
Wait, your voice is breaking up. Your voice is breaking up. Ask a question one more time.
So, are people doing karma yoga? Like, are they still doing karma yoga?
Yes, there are some people who are doing. There are some people who are doing karma yoga. In the whole world, right? In the whole world, there are people who are doing karma yoga. There may be people, who may come to the temple like, once in 6 months or once in a year, or maybe on Janmashtami, something like that. There are people in the world, they do karma yoga. There are people in the world, they do jnana yoga. Yes. What Srila Prabhupada is telling us is that we don't need to do all those things. We can just do bhakti yoga and everything else will be covered.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you. Good question. Any other questions or comments from anyone? Okay, then I guess we can conclude our session. Good discussion today. Thank you. It shows you guys are all listening and actively participating. Very happy. Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.